Yeah, hello everyone. I hope it is audible. We are sincerely sorry for whatever happened right now. It's our first time experiencing this and we are sorting it out. So I think without further ado, let's move on to the session. Unfortunately, because of the time constraint that we have now, we will not be taking questions today, but you can all put your queries in the WhatsApp chat or group or email it to us if possible. Thank you for your cooperation.
Is it fine now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Really sorry. Really sorry.
But you can see my slides.
Yes, it's visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I hope most of the people have joined back, and I am also feeling very bad that at the starting of the event, some unscrupulous elements they try to uh, take the focus from our idea of convening a biological group who can discuss on the biology, which can lead to much more discussions and taking biology beyond its regular boundaries. I appreciate the team BioRx for arranging the seminar. At the same time, I think you can adopt a little bit more professional approach by only allowing the presenter and only when questions are asked, let them raise the hand and accordingly we can professionally manage it. Sorry for what has happened when the meeting has started. And particularly when a community is coming together for doing such events, I am always interested in supporting the community because science should be discussed beyond the laboratories and beyond the classrooms so that it will be reaching the younger minds who want to take it further ahead. I hope my screen is properly visible. I am Grinson George, Director of Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, and the topic assigned to me is on marine ecosystems in a changing climate. I see that many of you are from a zoology background who are a part of the team, and the president himself is from the botany background, and there have been several events which took part as part of this seminar series. And today we will be diving deeply into the marine ecosystems and how that is very much relevant in the changing climate scenario. So, moving to my slides, if you find there is some difficulty in seeing the slides or if I am not audible, kindly let me know. When it comes to marine ecosystem, unlike the terrestrial ecosystems, which many of you are familiar with, marine ecosystem is very complex and dynamic. And whatever is happening in the marine ecosystem, it is having a reflection on the land also. And largely, the terrestrial ecosystems are guided by the biological, chemical, and physical events what is happening in the marine ecosystem. So, we look into the key characteristics part of the marine ecosystem. First and foremost thing is about the biodiversity. It's like a vast diversity of life, starting from very microscopic plankton to large marine mammals. Wonderful biodiversity, wonderful thing to study with. And when we have such a diversity existing that is having a strong interconnectedness, organisms interact through feeding relationships, symbiosis, and competition, forming intricate ecological networks. This ecological niche can be characterized by the physics, chemistry, and biology supporting it also. That is very wonderful. And when we study such environment that include factors like temperature, salinity, currents, nutrient availability, which shape this ecosystem. So, being a biologist, we may be wondering like our knowledge should be limited only to the biodiversity part of it. Maximum, I can work on the interconnectedness. How can I work on the environmental influences? I am also a biologist basically, but when such questions came to my mind, I took a topic in a very challenging mode, and my guide was an engineer. He was basically he has done his PhD in PhD from IIT Powai. But the only question he asked me was like, I am very sure about modeling, but when you are doing your research, you should be uh, thinking twice while taking this topic. So when I was very strongly indicating that my interest is to deal with this connectedness, uh, the people have raised apprehensions like, okay, I don't have a very strong max background. So if we do with the environmental mimicking or simulation modeling, whether it is going to work out. So for most biology students, you have such questions in my mind. When I am working on biodiversity, when I am working on the ecological interconnectedness, whether I am able to really uh, bring the network by taking the insights coming from the environmental criteria properly into the simulation modeling and really explaining the ecosystem. And that is very much possible. Some of my slides, I will be typically explaining how we did it with respect to the marine ecosystem. Coming to this ecosystem, the major thing what is guiding this ecosystem is food, because through the food only the transfer of energy, nutrients, and all those things happen. And that happens among organisms, highlighting the dependency between different trophic levels. And when it comes to the organisms, this food moves from the primary producers to primary consumers and secondary consumers and reaching the tertiary consumers. Basically, what we are looking is the large end predators like the fishes. But how do these fishes still remain in the ecosystem? That is through this mechanism of food what is being produced by the primary producers like the phytoplankton, macroalgae, and seagrasses, which is having the uh, food producing pigment chlorophyll in them in the marine environment also. And they require sunlight and the other required parameters to convert energy via process photosynthesis, which all of you are doing. And when such food are being produced by the phytoplankton, then the next primary consumers come into relevance. They include zooplankton and herbivorous fish, which feed on this phytoplankton and algae. So it is mostly the mix of groups like which is coming in the primary consumers, but they are at the lower level in size in the type of predation and other mechanisms. Then comes the secondary consumers, which include the small predatory fish, squid, and jellyfish, which are typically explaining the secondary consumers what we are seeing in this ecosystem, marine ecosystem. Now, finally, we have the large predators such as sharks, tuna, and marine mammals, which occupy the top niche of the food chain, and they are typically getting involved by breeding in this on this small predatory fish, squids, and jellyfish, and other organisms to survive. But at the same time, when we typically explain this sort of food chain in the marine ecosystem, there are largely other types of food chains also present in the marine ecosystem. That is a typically one which has been explained in the Arabian Sea, the microbial loop, where the bacteria and the decomposers recycle organic matter, breaking down dead organisms and waste into nutrients that again can sustain the ecosystem. Such sort of microbial loops also exist in the marine ecosystem. Coming to plankton itself, we have strong diversity in the organisms, which includes diatoms, dinoflagellates, cyanobacteria, and coccolithophores, a diversity of photosynthetic organisms. They convert sunlight and carbon dioxide into organic matter using the typical process of photosynthesis. It will be surprising to know that 50% of Earth's oxygen is produced by these organisms by regulating the atmospheric carbon dioxide. and their growth also depend on light, temperature, nutrient availability. And when we can really work on these factors, the light, temperature, and nutrient availability, we are typically able to relate the production process, the primary production process, at a particular period of time, how much biomass is additionally created into this ecosystem. So such cycles are also existing, and that also forms a major part of study in the marine ecosystem, the primary production and nutrient factors. Coming to the next important group of the organisms, the zooplankton, the animal part of it, they are also still planktonic in nature. They are heterotrophic organisms, which includes the diversity of copepods, krills, jellyfishes, larvae, and even the fish larvae, the small ones of the fish. Now, they mostly feed on phytoplankton and transfer energy up in the food chain. They exhibit serious vertical migration. During the night time, they can even come very close to the surface of the water. But at the same time, they move to the deeper waters during daytime to avoid predators. Now, all this phyto or zoo origin or the high-end predators or the secondary consumers, all of them exist in a geographical setup. And this geographical setup in the ocean is divided into different zones, like the sunlight zone, which we call as epipelagic zone, where maximum biodiversity is seen. Then it comes to the twilight zone, where what we call it as mesopelagic zone. Then the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone, and finally the abyssopelagic zone. And even we can see the trenches like the hadopelagic zone also existing in this environment. And what sort of cycles really nourishes this production is the carbon cycle. So this carbon cycle in the ocean plays a crucial role in regulating.
Slide is not moving, sir. Hello?
Slides are not moving.
No.
Which slide are you seeing?
Sir, still in first.
Still in first. Oh. It's still in first.
Sir.
Are you seeing the slides on marine ecosystems?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it moving to marine food webs?
Yes, sir.
Now it's moving. You can see the planktons. Plankton you can see, diatoms, dinoflagellates, cyanobacteria.
Yes, sir. Sir. Now it's moving.
Okay, now it's moving. So I was talking about the zooplankton. You can see the zooplankton now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Finally.
Okay, so we were describing the ocean zone. You can see the ocean zones also.
Yes,
Ocean
sir.
zones are seen? Okay, now coming to I have described the geographical terrain, the different types of diversity you are seeing with respect to the organism. Now, what is nourishing them is the primary production process. And for that primary production process, there is something called carbon cycle, which is controlling them. So this carbon cycle is controlled. Basically, when we say carbon cycle, it is the imbalance between the atmospheric and the oceanic carbon. So you can see like if there is more atmospheric carbon and there is a requirement of carbon dioxide in the oceanic waters, there is a sequestration what is happening, please. So such sequestration is facilitated through the phytoplankton, where the pigments are available. So the atmospheric carbon dioxide is taken up by phytoplankton. This phytoplankton uses the carbon to produce its different activities. In certain organisms, limestone is required. So this carbon is used for limestone production, for limestone exoskeleton. Certain phytoplankton, through the photosynthetic process, they produces organic matter. And this organic matter, as well as the limestone and related things, they will go to the deeper organisms. They may sink to the bottom and remains as a strong storage of carbon. This is the general carbon cycle what we are seeing. And if this storage process is remaining intact. There is proper sequestration happening, and ocean always remains as a carbon sink. But it need not be remaining as a carbon sink all the time. Sometimes it can act as a carbon source also. When we look into the biological carbon pump, the carbon, this is from the Woodsole Ocean Institute's website, where they have clearly indicated a graphical abstract on how the biological carbon pump exists mostly in the global oceans. So because of the presence of phytoplankton, the atmospheric carbon dioxide is taken by them, utilized by the zooplankton, low-end predators, as I was explaining in the case of trophic cycles, and finally reaching the large-end predators. But there are something called upwelling, what is happening in the nearshore waters, where the cold, nutrient-rich waters are coming to the surface. That comes along with several other factors, and there we can see like sometimes this carbon is getting removed also from the typical system. So this is the typical biological carbon pump process what is existing. In addition to the carbon cycle, we have an oxygen cycle also. This oxygen cycle is facilitated because there is a major group of microalgae, macroalgae, and phytoplankton existing in the ocean, and 50% of the oxygen production happens with this photosynthetic pigments what is present there in the ocean. So this oxygen cycle also exists there, which is helpful in sustaining the marine biodiversity in the normal marine ecosystem. At the same time, we have one more cycle, which is the nutrient cycle, which is through the nitrogen cycle, where the major nutrient cycle involves the nitrogen forms the chemical forms for the different biological, chemical, and physical activities. And this nitrogen cycle basically helps in the nitrogen fixation. This nitrogen fixation helps the phytoplankton to produce the biomass using the nitrogen available. Basically, when this is existing, this nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, carbon cycle, and the entire phytoplankton production process leading to the primary production, they create something called the algal presence in the waters. But this algal presence in the waters can create something called algal bloom. And the bloom, if it is created by a process called upwelling, which I was indicating, it can seriously influence the production of phytoplankton, which are mostly diatomaceous in nature and can sustain some fishes, like particularly Indian oil sardine in the case of Indian coastal waters, particularly to the southwest coast of India, Kerala, Karnataka, and Konkan coast. Because this fish prefers something called the diatomaceous bloom, which is an algal bloom, again produced by this process. Now coming to the marine biodiversity is almost 10% of the world diversity and marine fauna. We have strong presence of fishes, crustaceans, mollusks, echinoderms, and sponges. In addition, we have the sedentary fauna like corals, where there are 585 species belonging to 108 genera, 23 families. And mangroves, there are 70 species of mangroves and associated plants. Seaweeds, 844 species of seaweeds are found all along the Indian coast. Then some other species which are of critical importance is sea turtles, marine mammals, and birds. So this all form the marine biodiversity. So marine biodiversity is being described by several people, and the most important record come from Worms et al. And they have described the marine species globally and almost described most of the species, and that is the most cherished publication where we look for biodiversity related research. Now coming to this ecosystem, I was telling like this ecosystem is having an environment which is mostly driven by the physical forcing. Then when this physical forcing is guiding the biological production, I was telling about the upwelling which is producing more phytoplankton, and this phytoplankton can be devoured by small pelagic species like sardines, which is a major resource, and this can be used by resource users also. And these things generally get seriously affected by something called the change in the environmental condition, which is mostly governed by the major factor called climate change. And in climate change, we discuss mostly the increased sea surface temperature, which is creating a problem for the environment. When the environment is getting disturbed, it creates problem for the resources. And when the resource is getting disturbed, it creates disturbance to the livelihood of the fishes, the safety of the fishes in the sea, and related issues. Now coming to the impact of climate on phytoplankton, zooplankton, etc. I was telling about the diatoms. I told that diatoms are mostly governed by the upwelling process, what is happening in the southwest coast. And in the case of India, we can typically say that what is happening in Kerala, Karnataka, and Konkan coast, we have upwelling process. Because of the upwelling process, the nutrient-rich water is coming to the surface. Sunlight is easily available, and upwelling is mostly happening along with the southwest monsoon time. So, along with the upwelling process, when the southwest monsoon is happening, lot of nutrient-rich water is coming to the coastal waters. That triggers the production of phytoplankton at large, and particularly diatoms. Because diatoms require something called silica, because it has got siliceous covers, the top cover and the bottom cover, which forms the diatomaceous bloom, and this bloom is taken by the fishes like sardine. So phytoplankton responses are clearly guided by upwelling process in the case of the coastal areas in the Kerala, Karnataka, and Konkan region, and the rainfall activity also. With the rising temperature, we have seen that such activities are becoming seriously affected, and such processes are not really happening. That results in creating less nutrient supply and less biological production. Long-term study trends clearly indicated that these phytoplankton responses are becoming steadily uh, lesser and lesser. That means the biological production, what is happening in our waters, are having a steady increase over a long period of time because of the climate change and related issues. If phytoplankton responses are having such negative trends, then it can affect the zooplankton resources also. So when the phytoplankton production is not happening, that can create a problem for the zooplankton also. There exists sometimes mismatches between the phytoplankton booming and the zooplankton production also. And that can really affect the production of the fishes also. So such things are seriously witnessed in case of the coastal waters in India also. So there is a serious change in the environmental parameters. It is affecting the biology of the species what is existing in those areas, and finally resulting in a lot of changes with respect to the fishing what is happening in these waters. We have distributional changes, we have recruitment success related problems, we have issues with respect to the changes in the predator pressure also. I will tell the example. Distributional changes. Our species like Indian oil sardine, I told like it is seen mostly in the upwelling zones. But with the changes in the environmental variables, now we are seeing that this species is having an extension of spread. I will be showing in my further slides how this extension of spread is happening. So such distributional changes are regularly happening in the waters. Now coming to the lack of recruitment success. In particular year, particularly the years when we have El Nino happening in the Pacific. El Nino is a physical process what is happening in the Pacific region, particularly in the South American region, in Peru coast and all. That extreme event can create an impact with respect to the temperature gain what the northern Indian Ocean is having. So additional temperature is coming from the Pacific waters to the northern Indian Ocean waters. When additional temperatures are coming during the summer monsoon time, which is the physiologically active period, that the breeding period of the fish like sardine, that creates problems with respect to the recruitment success. And if the recruitment success is not proper, it can relate to the failure of the fishery, what is happening in these waters. At the same time, we are seeing a lot of changes in the predator pressure, leading to unpredictability in the fishery also. In a marine fishery, such distributional changes are very much seen in evidences also. We see that particularly in small pelagics at large, like oil sardine and Indian mackerel, evidences clearly indicate that there is an extension of distributional boundary towards the northern latitudes. That is the general way we are explaining, like when there are this issues like climate change happening, there is a extension of spread or movement happening from the equator to the northern latitudes or southern latitudes. That is what is happening. At the same time, these species try to create some changes in its phenology also. For example, in the case of a demersal species like threadfin bream, also there are evidences clearly indicating that there are changes happening in its spawning season towards relatively cooler periods, because otherwise the warmer periods, the recruitment success is very less. So the fish itself is adapting to the cooler months. Some species, they mature very early in their life, such as breams. Their usual life cycle is not happening. They are having smaller body size, but they are able to reproduce. They are producing smaller eggs and they are trying to sustain their generation. So such early maturation is also witnessed in certain species. A few species are growing faster than before, such as anchovies and oil sardines and lesser sardines, indicating higher food requirement at a short period of time, faster turnover of generation. Such changes are clearly witnessed in small species like anchovies, oil sardines, and lesser sardines. Recently in Kerala, we have been facing the criticism from the fishermen that all the time they are seeing only smaller sardines. The size is becoming smaller, and this is evident because the recruitment success is happening only in certain years, and certain years we are finding recruitment failure also. So a failure year followed by a successful year, we find only the 0 year class, only the juveniles being produced in that particular year seen in the fish what is caught. So we have looked into the vulnerability of the fish species, and we could identify the vulnerable fish species starting from sardines, fishes, tunas, ribbon fishes, barracuda. Like many of the species distributed along the coast of India, they are showing very high vulnerability. Now coming to the extreme events, when the climate change events are very much certain in the ecosystem, this is creating a sort of thermal stratification. The upper layer of the water, because of the higher temperature gained by the upper layer of water, they gets mixed within that layer, and that layer becomes thermally stratified. A thick stratified layer is present in the pelagic part or the surface waters very close to the coastal waters of India. And when such thermal stratification happens largely, this thermal stratification acts as a natural barrier for processes like upwelling or any other biological productivity. So nature has got its own mechanism to break this barrier. That nature's way of breaking this barrier come in the form of cyclones. And there are direct impact of cyclones which are increasing in frequency, increasing in intensity, and that creates a lot of issues for the fishermen also. The first thing is like when there is a cyclonic warning, fishermen cannot go to the sea. So previously, when you see that in a calendar year, if a fisherman is going into the sea for more than 200 days, as on now, in the present days, they are hardly going up to 100 days, 120 days into the sea because there are statutory cyclonic warning. Otherwise, there are thermal heat warning. All these things are happening, and there are loss of effort happening because of that, and less production happening. Now, coming into the typical way how the microorganisms are behaving, we could see like the microbial load in general is increasing with respect to extreme events, be it the temperature, be it the flood and related aspects. The microbial load is increasing in the coastal waters. At the same time, we witness that the algal blooms are also increasing, and all these blooms are not beneficial also. Many of them are harmful in nature. In a typical study what we conducted with respect to the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, we could see like the Arabian Sea is having threefold increase in the harmful algal bloom events, and the Bay of Bengal is having almost twice more increase in the harmful algal bloom events. When the algal bloom events are happening, this algal bloom events will create a problem to the next level also. In the trophic level also, this impacts are visibly seen. For example, when more algae is producing in a very small area, that can create oxygen minimum zones also. In that particular area, the water becomes oxygen deficient because this phytoplankton requires a lot of oxygen during the night time, and in the early morning hours, there will be typically oxygen devoid zones, and the fish really struggles there. Sometimes when certain harmful algal blooms are happening, these harmful algae can generate biotoxins also. And if a concentrated biotoxin presence is there in a particular location, this can lead to poisoning of the fish also, in the sense like the fish meat also get poisoned because of the accumulation of the harmful algal bloom toxin in their body. And that can lead to ciguatera poisoning. For example, when such excessive biotoxins are there in the tissue, that can even be lethal to the human beings who are consuming that. There are evidences of ciguatera poisoning happening in different parts of the world, the paralytic shellfish poisoning happening in different parts of the world. So when we are witnessing more and more harmful algal blooms, we have to look these algal blooms from that particular point of view. Climate change is having more direct impacts with respect to the insecurity, with respect to the threats to water and sanitation. More water-associated diseases are increasing. I told that microbial load is increasing. With the increasing microbial load, we find that more water-associated diseases are very much prevalent in the communities which are residing very close to these water bodies. Now, looking into the way in which the mismatches are creating problem to the relationship between the ecosystem and the fisheries, we could see like when there are changes in the distribution pattern of the Indian oil sardine, the major guiding thing what is leading this changes in distribution pattern is the chlorophyll concentration. We could look into, because with the arrival of satellite remote sensing products give a lot of color products, and these color products are easy to interpret with the fish catches. So we could look into Indian oil sardine as a typical species and see that these environmental perturbations are really affecting the catch of Indian oil sardine. At the same time, we could see like uh, apart from the ocean color, the temperature is also creating serious impacts with respect to this species. When temperature anomalies are created, for example, marine heat waves, when there is an extreme event which is generating more heat, like the Indian Ocean dipole, El Nino, that creates more heat gain in the coastal waters, that creates problem for the fishes like sardine. We can typically look into the way how it can be explained. For example, in the month of May to September, in this particular slide, what I am showing, you can see that from May month to September, it is the uh, physiologically active season or for the Indian oil sardine fishery. This is the time when they breed. So when they are breeding, in this time, when sufficient chlorophyll biomass is not there, followed by the zooplankton biomass, the larval survival or the recruitment success will be less. So by the time when the fish is ready to breed, the environment also should have sufficient chlorophyll there. So this is typically when we have tried to match this. This was one of my earlier studies where I looked in the satellite remote sensing product and could find that the early arrival of chlorophyll really helps in the recruitment success. Late arrival of chlorophyll creates problem with respect to the recruitment success. So such studies could prove that we can directly link satellite remote sensing with the Indian oil sardine fishery. Now, when we are saying that the temperature is creating a problem with respect to the fishery, and there are extension of spread happening from the equator to the northward latitudes, we wanted to see like this change in the fishery, whether it is because of the changes in the environmental variable. It can be because of the fishing practices. It can be with respect to the behavior of the people residing in the coastal community. So we wanted to assure that this extension of spread is happening because of the ecological characteristics. Our team working on ecological informatics, they could clearly characterize the ecological niche in which a particular fish is available. In this case, they have ecologically characterized the case of Indian oil sardine. And when they can ecologically characterize the case of Indian oil sardine will be seen mostly in this ecologically characteristics area. So if there can be an extension of this area, we can clearly say that the possibility of fish moving to the other parts also is a reality. So we could do that with the help of ecological informatics, and we could succeed in that. So when we can have clear picture of the current distribution with respect to this ecological characteristics, we can even see like what can happen in 2040, 2050, 2090, 2000. So all those things are possible. So we looked into the different scenarios generated by IPCC, and we could see like what is going to this ecological niche in the later future. So that can also be characterized. So depending upon the type of scenarios generated by IPCC, we have different scenarios. In 4.5, we have a major distribution in the Indo-Pacific, and sardine is going to thrive. When it comes to RCP 6 scenario, it is not so. There is a serious movement of sardines. Sardines are not seriously seen in all the places, unlike in RCP 4.5. You can see the red areas are the areas where the ecological niche have more stronger presence. So in RCP 6, you see that the red color is comparatively less. In RCP 8.5, it is showing a totally different scenario. When we are saying sardine is mostly seen in Kerala, Karnataka, and Konkan coast, it is moving to the other coast. It is moving to the Gujarat coast. It's moving to the Middle East. It's moving to the Somali coast much more in RCP 8.5. So such ecological informatic information can give wonderful information on the distribution possibilities. So we have studied on 34 commercially important marine species. What is going to happen to them by 2100 in northern Indian Ocean region? So mostly in the case of smaller pelagics, we find that reduced extent of distribution in RCP 8.5. We see that large pelagics, they are more vulnerable and still they also can have a northward extension of distribution and increased distributional pattern for major oceanic species like tunas and all. At the same time, we have looked into the possibility of linking this environmental variables, the hydrodynamic variables, the current patterns, and all to predict the possibility of the movement of fish stocks also. This was one work I did when I was working at National Institute of Oceanography. This still stands good. This is a strong decision support system. When we have marine protected areas, we want to protect a particular environment. Our interest is that this environment should largely protect that particular species. But we are taking decisions on blanket recommendations. We find that a particular area is having more corals, we declare that as a marine protected area. When we have more mangroves, we declare that as a marine protected area. But how to ensure that this is properly governed by the environmental variables? For example, we are giving corals a marine protected area status. And if the environment is not conducive, because of the changes in the environmental variable, even though when we are protecting them, they can get all damaged because of the changes what is happening in the environmental conditions. Corals are subjected to bleaching events like in the 1998, 2000, 2002, 2005. All these years we had serious bleaching events happening in our waters, even 2015, nearby 2024 also. Partial bleaching events and major mass bleaching events also happen. Next year, we are expecting that there can be major bleaching events also. So such habitats, whether such events are going to happen, we should be knowing with accuracy with respect to the optimum environmental condition, which areas are ideal for this species. So if a particular area is ideal for a particular species, we can protect these species in that particular environment. So this is one such decision support system what I have generated, and I have looked into different basin scale studies. This is in the case of Gulf of Kutch. This is the model validation what I did with respect to the hydrodynamics, and finally coming to the fish part of it and explaining it like how this area can have the presence of aggregating fishes in a particular zone and less aggregating in other zones. You could see the larval dispersal pattern and coming to a conclusion that particular location where more larvae are getting aggregated, we can clearly demarcate them as the nursery area and we have to protect such areas also. We are largely doing ecological niche modeling to ensure that we want to see that invasive species when they are coming, how we can provide them. This is the case of Charu mussel Mytilla strigata. We have done the ecological niche modeling to understand the invasive potential of this particular mussel. This was a study again done by our ecological informatics team, where Srinath was leading and Mohammed Missin, a scholar in CMFRI, has come up with the invasive potential, how this mussel can move from a particular area to a particular area, what are the possible ecological mechanisms by which it can get distributed. So such distribution modeling will give indications on how this particular species is moving from one location to another location. We did a similar study to study the range shifts in oil sardine, a maxent approach to assess the climate impacts and see like how this approach can help us in identifying the climate impacts to oil sardine and project it with more accuracy. Field observations clearly indicate that changing temperature really changes the structure and function of the marine ecosystem, particularly the essential fish habitats such as corals. This is a typical study what we did in Andaman Nicobar group of islands in 2010, when the bleaching happened, which was much higher than 1998 event, which was considered another mass bleaching event, where the temperature of the sea raised to the level of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius than the 1998 mass bleaching event. And this temperature increase has triggered the mass expulsion of corals from a particular location. And basically, the fingered beautiful corals like for acroporids were seriously affected, and massive stony corals remain more resilient. 20 years back, when I am diving into the waters, what I am seeing, the structure is totally different from the structure what I am seeing now. This is because of such events which are creating devastating effect on such critical habitats. So now this has led to mechanisms like developing coral reef bleach advisory systems, which are operationalized by International Center for Ocean Information Services. So such bleaching advisories will be enabling us to know which areas are going to get bleached much more. And when prolonged heat waves are happening, what is going to happen to our corals? So such information help us to prepare better when a bleaching event is happening. We can disallow tourists to go to such locations. The anthropogenic pressure can be less on such location, so that as such there is massive damage happening because of bleaching. We can still reduce other potent damages happening because of the anthropogenic interference by giving proper advisories in such areas. When this climate change is creating a lot of issues to the typical fish species, our basic feeling was that initially this is seriously happening at the surface level, so surface dwelling species are affected. But our studies now clearly indicate that it is not only affecting the surface dwelling species like sardines, but it is affecting the column water dwelling species, and to the greater extent to the fishes which are living close to the bottom. Even the demersal species like threadfin breams are also seriously affected. So the temperature changes are not only seriously affecting the pelagic species, it is affecting the demersal species also. So this led us to investigate deeply on how vulnerable are Indian coastal areas. When vulnerability has to be addressed, it has to be addressed as a district. So unlike the typical scientific mechanisms, we have gone to the geographical boundaries and developed a hazard atlas with a multiple hazard index to see like how vulnerable our coastal districts are. And we have come up with a vulnerability framework to identify how different coastal districts in the maritime states and union territories behave, and what can be the typical physical vulnerability of these districts to various significant hazards like cyclones, floods, shoreline changes, sea level rises, and heat waves. So when we studied this, we could see like the maximum score was for Krishna districts in Andhra Pradesh, and the lowest score was for the state of Goa, and the district which was least vulnerable was Sindhur district in Maharashtra. When we see that nature is having such changes happening, we want to study this in detail using experimental mechanisms. So we have assessed the impact of higher temperature on different species. This is the case of seaweed gracilaria. And we could see like seaweeds are also showing a lot of physiological changes, a lot of changes with respect to its instinct on growth and survival when the temperature is changing. So it is very essential to study the changes what is happening in the marine environment. So with a lot of research, we could zero into a model fish to study, and that is a Indian rice fish, Oryzias dancena. We could find that it can tolerate the salinity and it can tolerate the temperature and its gestation. The embryonic development and the next generation development was happening in a very short period. So we developed this as a model fish, and now the 11th generation is running at our Millennium Center of CMFRI. And using the candidate species, we were trying to see like how this is affecting the reproductive cycle. This is one such experiment which we did with respect to Trachinotus blochi, how things are changing with respect to the larval development when it is subjected to different temperature risk. So in general, CMFRI has developed various innovative climate resilient technologies, be it in farming, be it in integration. Like we have come up with integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, where we are trying to see like if we can integrate seaweed with respect to the finfish farming, the waste which is coming from the fish can be taken by the seaweeds. Sometimes the excess food what is coming from the cages can be taken by mussels. So all those things, if it is integrated, it is becoming more profitable, more environmental friendly, and more climate resilient also. So different such mechanisms we have developed, where we can call them as resilient technologies. These are some of the successful cases where we are trying co-management models where seaweed farming adopted by women cooperatives, other self-help groups in different maritime states in the country. They are largely carbon sequestering. Seaweeds are largely sequestering carbon dioxide. So in general, there is a possibility of earning net carbon credit also when we are using seaweeds integrated into this farming mechanisms. These are some of the inter farming practices which CMFRI has done. If you Google into CMFRI website, you can see wonderful videos generated out of this experiments what we have done and how we have translated this into the different part of the society by giving this technology to different people. Habitats are getting largely destroyed. Government of India in its PMSSY scheme came up with one of our technologies called artificial reefs. If reefs are deployed in different places, that can create an ecological succession, create better ecosystem. And we do give technical support to most of the maritime states and union territories in deploying the artificial reefs, doing its pre and post assessments also. We are strongly into mariculture activities because the pressure on fish as a capture resource. Fishermen are going into the sea and they can catch the fish, but it's an open access resource. And that resource cannot be continuously harvested also. So the demand is increasing. More mechanisms should be there to satiate the demand of the people who are interested in producing more fish. So we have come up with mariculture technologies. These are some of the technologies where we have come up with simple mechanisms by which the coastal communities can farm fish in the sea. At the same time, we are strongly into assessing this emissions, what are happening in different systems. When it comes to the capture fisheries, where fishermen are going to the sea and catching the fishes, India is one of the best in the globe. We are 17.7% less than global average when it comes to mechanized fishing, and 30% less than global average when it comes to the entire fishing. It includes the traditional, the motorized and other fishing also. 30% less than the global average. A lot of climate smart village initiatives have gone in, basically because some of the technologies what we have developed, the government of India has accepted the technologies and is promoting through its PMMSY scheme, the scheduled caste sub schemes and climate resilient fishing villages scheme of government of India. So this is in general I want to speak. I know like there are a lot of questions. Sorry for the disturbance happened. This was not, this has not happened as such. It was planned. I was also feeling a little bit awkward when initially things were not happening its way, but I did not want to run away from the spirits the youngsters were showing to move this idea of bringing biologists together in this platform to discuss more biology with respect to the ecosystem and environment and take the biology from the classrooms and laboratories to the field. So with this, I am stopping my slides. In case if there are some pertinent questions which I have to address, I can address them. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sir, can we have a couple questions?
Yes, yes. If you can read out the question. I know like people were trying to disturb the way you were trying to regulate the questions. I felt like the people were trying to disturb the question answer session also. So you can ask the questions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have them sent in to us. So, yeah. So the first question is by Hridaya. The question is, what role can microbiologists play in the conservation of marine ecosystems and prevention of marine ecosystem degradation?
Okay. As such, there are a lot of scope for microbiologists in marine ecosystem also. It's not like CMFRI is without microbiologists. We at CMFRI have a lot of microbiologists working. Apart from CMFRI, the other institutes like National Institute of Oceanography also, there are a lot of microbiologists and other related organizations also have microbiologists in them. What is their major role? First major role is like to see like how the environmental microbiology is suiting to the production process. I was indicating about the microbial loop, which was invented in the late 90s by Madhu Pratap et al. So when we have such things happening, the environmental microbes are playing a major role. At the same time, with the increasing temperature, there are a lot of water-associated diseases happening among the coastal communities. It is to the extent of 15% of loss of their working days. So when water-associated diseases are increasing, this is typically because the microbial load is also increasing and there are pathogenic microbes which are creating problems to the community which is residing close to the coastal waters. So there are bigger roles in that way. Even we can link many of the modeling activities to microbiology also. We had a program with my fellow colleague Dr. Anas Abdulaziz, who is working in National Institute of Oceanography, where we were trying to see like whether we can identify the risk-prone areas which are creating water-associated diseases. If we can give an advisory, it will be very useful. So for that purpose, we wanted to know with which group of organisms these microbes are interacting. So a particular phytoplankton is essential for the survival of microbial colony there. We can have the environmental modeling done to see that particular groups. If copepods are dominating, we can see the ecological decision support system, which can generate the conditions for that particular ecological niche. And we can give predictions that this particular organism is increasing in the waters, and there is a possibility that there is a possible outbreak of a disease which is related to this microorganism. So such possibilities are existing. Another important line in which the fisheries industry is moving is with respect to uh, cellular mariculture. Cellular mariculture is a mechanism by which we can create fish meat in laboratory conditions. So for that purpose, cell lines derived from the fish plays a major role. So if we can generate cell lines, fish cell lines are generally uh, surviving quite a lot. In our lab itself, it has gone up to more than 450, 500 passages. So we can almost say that they are immortal cell lines. And these cell lines can be converted into fish meat if ideal conditions are provided. A lot of research is happening. Some companies, private companies have come up with such technologies. So ahimsa meat or fish cell line based meat is one possibility. We are working on those areas also. So there are big possibilities for microbiologists also to work on marine ecosystem, cellular mariculture, looking into the microbial associated diseases, and this disease is not only harming the human beings but also harming the organisms which are in the sea, like the diseases what is happening to essential fish habitats, diseases which are happening in the fishes which are farmed, diseases which are happening in the fish which are being harvested from the natural waters. All these areas, there are plenty of opportunities for marine microbiologists also. We can have the next question.
Next we have Sajeev sir here.
Yes. I know Sajeev sir has taken one presentation earlier. Thank you, sir, for supporting the team.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for introduction to the marine world. I understand that there are many students at the graduate and postgraduate levels attending this program. So you are the best person to give them a bit of information on where they can pursue a study in marine biology available in Kerala and across India, so that they can get a clear line of institutions, courses, things like that. Is that possible, sir?
Yeah. Basically, when it comes to studies, if you are doing your graduate studies, depending upon your graduation, you can opt for the postgraduate courses in marine-related areas. Like in the marine sciences gamut, we have courses related to geology, biology, physics, chemistry. And in the case of physical oceanography, even those who have studied mathematical background also can join. Then there are meteorology courses also. So in meteorology courses also, those people can join. So in physics and physical oceanography and meteorology, and to a greater extent in geophysics also, those people can try. Those from physics and mathematics background. Those from chemistry background, they can try for marine chemistry. Those from biology background, they can pursue marine biology. Those from geology background, they can go for marine geology. Basically, when this commodity is with biology background, your interest will be doing a course like marine biology. Marine biology courses are offered in Kerala by CUSAT, which is having a long-standing legacy. Then with the new university, Kerala University of Fisheries and Ocean Studies, they also have biological oceanographic programs happening there. In addition to typical marine biology or biological ocean, this is happening in other universities also. For example, I did my marine science PhD in Goa University. Goa University also you can go for PG and PhD program. But Goa University PG program was slightly different. Unlike the specialization, what is happening in the PG level starting itself, in the case of Goa University, you study most of the courses together. And even though you are from geology, biology, chemistry, physics background, but you tend to specialize it within this PG program. So it is a PG in marine sciences rather than marine biology. But if you're a biologist, you can complete the marine science program with your biology background also and go into marine biology research. Berampur University is offering, Annamala University is having a Center of Advanced Studies in Marine Biology. And there are a lot of such programs happening at PG level. When it comes to PhD, PhD different universities are offering different programs. When it comes to my institute, Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, as on now, I think at the headquarters itself, we have close to 120 students doing their doctoral research programs. And in the centers, you can have another 20 or 25 people doing their doctoral research programs also. These students, they generally qualify after their PG program, the exams like UGC, CSIR, JRF examination. If you are a gold medal winner, there is a DST Inspire Fellowship which you can avail for and you can join for PhD program. With these fellowships, you can come and join organizations such as CMFRI, NAO, and other related organizations also. And when you join such organization, you can be part of some of the major programs happening and you can join with some of the scientists and upscale yourself to the PhD degree. But you will be affiliated to one of the universities. CMFRI is having affiliation as the research center to different universities. People generally, if it is Kochi, if it is at Kochi, they generally register at CUSAT, they register at KUFOS, they register with Mangalore University. Some of them I have seen like even try to get registration in some other universities also. So this is the mechanism by which they do their PhD program. And if you are not from biology degree, whether you can still pursue biology because you have an interest in biology, that's also a possibility. I have seen like people doing biotechnology, microbiology after completing their UG and PG in biotechnology and microbiology related programs. When they come for PhD program, they can do absolutely a research in marine biology and related areas. They can, even though your background is from, even though it may be from environmental science or microbiology or biotechnology, there is no issue in registering for a PhD in marine sciences with respect to many of the universities. But still, if you feel like you want to continue that biosciences tag, you can register for PhD in biosciences in Bangalore University. That is what, with our limited facility, what CMFRI is offering. If you are not able to qualify the CSIR or UGC examination, what is the next step? Still, you want to pursue the doctoral research or research and related activities. What you can do is like you can look for opportunities where we call for people to work in our major research programs. So it comes as a notification for a young professional or even for a JRF. When it comes to a JRF again, we insist that they should have 4-year bachelor's program, but in many of the colleges now 4-year bachelor's programs are running. So there is no problem with respect to that. If you have a 4-year bachelor program followed by a 2-year PG program, you can apply for JRF. If it is a 3-year program, generally we insist on NET. JRF is not a must. If net qualification is there, you can appear for that. So this is how you can join for some of the project programs, what is happening in the institute. Once you join in the project, if you prove yourself, generally the scientist with whom you are attached, they will guide you to PhD process by securing fellowship for 3 years and making sure that you are qualifying some of the university related entrance examination and then registering for the PhD program. This is how it's happening. So these are some possibilities which you can explore. After 2 years in research stream without net also, CSIR is offering SRF directly if you have 2 years with some research papers also. So these are some mechanisms. Tech is also offering some fellowships. You can take such fellowships also and join for PhD programs. this is how you can go ahead with the programs, what is happening in India. But if your mind is like, okay, you want to do research and research abroad also, whether I am doing a graduate program, whether I can go for an MS program, yes, there is a big possibility. Compared to many of the fellowships offered abroad, competition is comparatively less in marine field compared to the engineering field and other fields. If you want to do an MS, you can write GRE, TOEFL and related examination. You can prove by your academic activities that you are a very promising researcher and you want to do your PG programs abroad with the internships you have done when there is a semester break, the type of small activities you are getting involved and uh, to prove that you are really passionate about your research. And if you score good in GRE and TOEFL, then definitely you can do your PG and PhD abroad also. There are big possibilities. There are several such fellowships offered. With respect to marine biology in Japan, there is a special opportunity with those who are interested in Japan. It's called Mumboshe. In Mumboshe Fellowship, if you have completed PG program in marine related areas, and if you want to pursue a PhD in marine related subjects, Mumboshe is a fellowship which you can avail and go for Japanese studies. So there are several such fellowships available. You can Google it and find it out yourself. And if you want to dive into the marine world and explore much more, these are some of the possible avenues.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
That was
sir.
quite
I
insightful.
have done some. I have done some videos also. I can share some of my videos on all this, like in the group also. You can later see in those videos and then follow it up later. Any other question?
Yes, sir. We have Siddhi asking a question whether algal growth can be reduced by introducing black clams.
Okay. Interesting because they are generally filtering the water and finding their food. This is one mechanism. This mechanism we are adopting when we are giving organic inputs in certain location. For example, when cage culture activities are happening, I explained a slide related to integrated multi-trophic aquaculture (IMTA). In such areas, we are giving heavy input of feed. So when we are giving heavy input of feed, everything will not remain in the cage. It can move out of the cage. So that creates a certain organic enrichment in those locations. And blooms are also being formed. So as a remedy, what we are indicating to the farmer is like you can grow, you can have molluscan wraps along with your cages, finfish cages. So this molluscan wraps can filter some of this uh, excess feed coming in, excess bloom, what is being produced in those locations, so that that can form the food of the molluscans, and additional profit can be generated. So this is one mechanism. There are biological way of controlling the blooms what are happening, but the blooms are happening at a much bigger scale. So when it is happening at such a bigger scale, and if it is harmful in nature, the biotoxin is a big issue. This biotoxin is paralytic shellfish poisoning is mostly caused by molluscans. So when we grow molluscans just in a location where more algal blooms are happening, then we have to be worried about the biotoxin accumulation also. So such studies have to be conducted to ensure that if you are taking this mollusks for consumption, then serious studies are required to ensure that they are biologically safe to consume also.
Thank you, sir. Arya CM, a student of College of Climate Change and Environmental Science under Kerala Agriculture University, has a question. She has a question about Omkareshwar floating solar panel project in the Narmada River in Madhya Pradesh. So she asks whether this project where solar panels are involved on top of the river, will it affect the aquatic biodiversity since it blocks the sunlight?
Uh, a, any sort of engineering intervention can have environmental impact. And I am not an expert to talk on what is happening with respect to the solar panel and its biodiversity happening in the Narmada River. We have a full-fledged institute, Central Inland Fisheries Research Institute, which is based at Barakpur. They do such studies. So when a infrastructure is being created, it is creating environmental impact, and our interest is like the impact what is created on the environment, whether it is under a threshold level. So environmental impact assessment studies are carried out uh, before having such engineering interventions also. So, for example, in the case of Vizhinjam Port, when it came, there were environmental impact assessment studies carried out on fishing, biodiversity, coastal areas, and all those things. So, such impact studies are part of a routine process by which we ensure that such engineering programs are not affecting the existing mechanisms in a larger way. Definitely, there will be a change, but that change is within the threshold level. That's how we assess it and we go forward.
Uh, Sir, I'm Gayatri. My question is that you earlier said about coral degradation. So my understanding is that these coral reefs are extremely sensitive organisms. So we have, seen coral farming and such setups. So genotyping also might help, but does genotyping exactly give us what we want? Like even if we, raise the bar somewhere, like sunlight, it can take in more sunlight or something, or heat resistance. Will it actually affect the coral in some other way? Will it degrade its role in the ecosystem?
I could not conceive the question fully, but in general, we have all these things happening in our own ecosystem. For example, the type of coral reefs we see in Gulf of Kutch, it's mostly degraded in nature. And we have reefs in Gulf of Mannar, which are living in higher temperature, uh, the waters which are having higher temperatures. Whereas in the case of Andaman and Lakshadweep, the waters are comparatively cooler compared to the Gulf of Mannar reefs. But the same species is living in Andaman, Lakshadweep, and Gulf of Mannar also. Then why there is an increase in temperature and it is getting bleached in Andaman and Lakshadweep? Basically, the corals which are existing in Gulf of Mannar, though the biodiversity is different, the structure is different. Basically, there are certain species which are living in all these three environments. So, in the case of Gulf of Mannar, they have been through this process for a long period of time, and probably they have developed some sort of mechanism by which they can still remain in a water which is having higher temperature. But probably they have been living in a comfortable zone in Andaman and Lakshadweep, and when there is a temperature trigger, they get seriously bleached. So this is how it is happening. Now, what is the mechanism by which we can really protect them? Uh, with great difficulty, we understand that the community structure is changing. People have predicted that by 2050, uh, this can completely get removed from our waters. But my belief is like this will existing in different forms. In the case of the Gulf of Kutch, which is a completely degraded reef, we find that the corals have been replaced by something called zoanthids. Zoanthids are massively growing in those areas. So, but they are not typically corals. But in degraded reefs also we find stony corals like Poraitus and others surviving beyond our expectation when the acropods, beautiful acropods all got bleached. So the ecosystems are trying to mend themselves to the changing climatic variables. That's how things are progressing. So this is how things are happening in the nature. So when things are happening in the nature, we are trying to make some small interventions only, how to support these activities, identifying the right areas, protect those areas so that more corals will get colonized there and grow there. Try to have simple mechanisms by which we can gather such mechanisms in the Indian coastal area. Artificial reef, it cannot be a replacement for the coral reef, but we know that some fishes they need reef-like structures for completing their life cycle. It need not be essentially coral reef. So we create artificial reef. So these are some mechanisms by which we are trying to explore the ways how nature itself is doing, supported with some engineering tactics, so that coral reef not in its essential form, but in a different form is existing so that other organisms can survive. That's what we are doing, but more research is required in this area. More people are required to put their energy and finance in this area so that more better results will come to protect the corals, which are otherwise facing serious challenges.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we have come to the end of all questions.
Okay.
So let's conclude this session. So as we come to the end of today's session, we extend our sincere thanks to Dr. Grinson George for his insightful talk about the effects of changing climate on the marine ecosystem, and for patiently understanding our issues and also answering all our queries, even though we had our own time constraints. We also thank everyone who joined and actively participated today. Your curiosity and engagement are what continue to drive Biorix forward as a meaningful and growing scientific community. Once again, our sincere apologies to every participant, and we are going to sort out the issues, and we'll make sure that this does not happen again. I would like to remind you about the Biorix Bio Talks, which is a student knowledge sharing series, and we will have further sessions, and it'll be informed in our group and Instagram page. So I think that's it. With that, we officially conclude today's session. Thank you, all of you, for participating in this discussion. See you in the
Thank you.
next Biorix session.
Thank you for the opportunity. And anytime there is a possibility, visit CMFRI. February 3rd, we are open to all researchers. We have our open house scheduled on February 3rd, which is our foundation day. We have open houses and we are completing 80 years in research. So when there is a possibility, visit CMFRI, be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.